you're warming up for jiu-jitsu, are you doing it the right way? The studies say probably not, and you're going to lose your limbs. Or not. But warming up is obviously a very important part of any sport, jiu-jitsu especially, when we are very purposefully trying to force someone's limb into a more than extreme range of motion, trying to bend limbs the way that they're not supposed to bend, generating a lot of torque and force on our bodies. So obviously warming up is very, very important. But what is the best way to warm up for jiu-jitsu? How can we make this work the best way possible to minimize injury? Well, the studies would show, research would show that doing jiu-jitsu is the best possible warm-up for jiu-jitsu. Any sport, doing the actual motions that you're going to be doing for that sport are the best motions for the warm-up, because it's going to directly model the movements that you're doing. So those specific muscles and tendons and ligaments and everything will get a chance to get stretched out and get warmed up and everything. It reinforces muscle memory. So by the beginning of class, like doing shrimps as your part of your warm-up, well, yeah, that's going to reinforce that movement. That's good. The other thing that it does, by actually doing the movement and not doing random movements, but doing specific movements to your sport, in this case, we're talking jiu-jitsu, you're actually priming your central nervous system to fire faster and more accurately. So by going through all of these motions as your warm-up, you're actually going to make yourself perform better later on. But we warm up at the beginning of class. You know, we bow in and then someone leads the warm up. We do some laps and we do the things. Okay, cool. And if you're doing a relatively consistent warm up that involves a lot of basic jiu-jitsu motion, then great, your warm up is probably there. As long as when you're done, you're feeling like you're warmed up, you're feeling looser. Maybe some of those aches in your joints are starting to lessen because of the analgesic effect we have just through exercise. But maybe you're like me and you're old as shit. And warming up takes a little bit longer than maybe what we do in the actual class warm up. Or maybe the warm up today is just going to be a few laps because we're running late, or there's a lot that we need to do. Or maybe it's just that the warm-up's not going to mimic anything that we're doing. There's a lot of things that could possibly happen with that warm-up. Again, unless you do the same warm-up every time, that it might be worth getting to class early and getting some additional warm-up in. You warm up before the warm-up. Now, do you need to do this? The answer in some studies is going to say maybe, because maybe you're still in your 20s and you're made of rubber and magic, and you can just show up to class and start rolling cold. That happens with some folks. Even then, warming up properly in some studies has shown a 36% reduction in injury rates, even among young athletes. I think that's kind of telling. You know, when we're in our teens and our 20s, our bodies are very resilient and resistant to injury, but not invulnerable. And again, looking at this sport and looking at what we're doing in it, yeah, a 36% reduction in injury rate is kind of big. I would want that, because what I don't want to do is lose time on the mats. The other thing to think about is if we're older, as we age, it takes a little bit longer for us to warm up. We're a little bit more rickety, a little bit more creaky in the joints. So for me, maybe that few laps and a few shrimps on the ground is not enough. So I like to get the class and warm up just a little bit more to make sure that I'm fully ready to go and not going to throw my back out. As we get older, we get injured for stupid shit, right? I have herniated a disc in my back while reaching for my cell phone. Just sitting and it's stupid. I don't get hurt doing the cool stuff, right? I'm older. That would not have happened to me in my 20s. There's other things we can do to help mitigate injury, like lifting heavy weights and proper nutrition, but warming up is a really important step. So if we're older, we might want to take a little bit more time and guarantee that we're warmed up, even if there is a normal warm up in class. What are the benefits? How does warming up actually work? I was interested in this. You know, we have this idea, all right, I get in and I'm going to do some leg swings and I'm going to do some shrimps and maybe some shoulder rolls and whatnot. And cool. All right, I'm warmed up. I can get ready and I can roll. But what is actually happening? I found this to be interesting. So the first thing that happens when we warm up is quite literally our muscles are quite literally warming up. It is increasing muscle temperature. Now, what does that mean? Why is that a good thing for sports? Higher temperature means more pliable tissue, right? It's warm. Think of it like warming up a sheet of plastic. That plastic is going to be able to a lot more pliable and easy to manipulate if it's warm, as opposed to a room temperature or a cold piece of plastic. If it's cold enough, it could just snap, whereas if it's warm enough, it could actually bend. It actually helps us. Warm muscles actually contract more efficiently and they stretch more safely. And for sport, that is something we really, really want. Stretching more safely, really important, right? Don't want someone ripping an arm bar on us and accidentally tearing a bicep muscle because we weren't warm, right? It's important that we get warmed up and we have the ability to stretch safely. But it also allows our muscles to contract more efficiently. That's really interesting, that it's not just how far we can go in one direction, but when I want to whip that arm back, I'm going to use less energy. When I do that, I'm going to be more energy efficient. That's a good thing. That way you're not gassing out at the end of your rolls. It also reduces resistance within the muscle fibers. So it makes us being explosive a lot sharper. So being able to just hit the trigger on that shot and try to get that blast double, we're going to be able to do that much more quickly, but we're also going to do it with a less chance of injury, where one of our tendons or ligaments is just going to pop off the bone. I've had that happen. It sucks. You do not want that to happen. It is at least 6 months before you're back up to full action. And that's like best case scenario. So, all right, that's just with warmer muscle temperature. What else happens? It actually enhances oxygen delivery. By warming up, more oxygen gets delivered to the working muscles, which just, I think basic physiology would tell you that's a good thing. Our bodies, our muscles need oxygen to operate at a prime level. Because we have more oxygen getting to the muscles, we fatigue more slowly. Okay, that's good. We're not gassing out. We recover faster. We recover more quickly between rounds. So we could go balls to the wall for 4 or 5 minutes. And yeah, we might be a little bit winded, but 30 seconds, a minute later, we're ready to go again. Or we at least are much better than if we're still sucking wind and have to take a round off. So we're not gassing out as quick. Another thing that happens with warming up properly, it improves nerve conduction. Now, I had to look that up because I'm not a doctor. I don't know what that means. So what does that mean? Improved nerve conduction. Well, think of it like electricity. The more conductive something is, the easier it is, or more likely, or its energy is going to get absorbed. Electricity will flow through it better, right? Wood is not very conductive. Copper is very conductive. So electricity flows through wood, but not flows through copper, but not wood. So improved nerve conduction, what does that do for us? Our muscles will respond faster. So that connection between our brain and our muscles that says, hey, I want to do this move, and then our muscles actually doing the moves, that will happen faster, which can be very important in jiu-jitsu, having that timing, being able to, hit that sweep, be able to hit that escape, those crucial moves in those crucial moments when we have the ability to do so. Now, another benefit of warming up specific to the movement that we will be doing is that preconditioned muscles, warmed up muscles, require more force to fail. So think about that. If I'm not warmed up and I try to go do my 1 rep max deadlift, I'm more than likely going to hurt myself. I might finish the deadlift, but I am probably going to be hurting after that. Best case scenario is I'm just going to be really sore. Worst case scenario is I'm going to herniate something. I'm going to tear something because my body's just not ready. My muscles aren't ready and primed in order to lift that much weight. But if I get warmed up, I do a couple warm-up sets for a deadlift, then I can go and I can do that 1 rep max, because now my muscles are going to require a higher factor of force in order for them to actually fail. So same thing with jiu-jitsu. We don't want our muscles to fail. That's a really bad thing. So warming up is going to make us more resilient to injury. Now, what should we do? Let's just say that we want to make sure we're optimizing our warm-up and minimizing our risk of injury, optimizing our performance. What should we do for our warm-up? Well, basic movements are going to be really, really good for this. Shrimps, shoulder rolls, reverse shrimps, doing like shoulder walks. You should also include some dynamic stretching, not necessarily static stretching. So a dynamic stretch is anything that is letting you move a joint and stretch a muscle to an extreme range, a safe extreme range, but with movement. So think about like leg swings, those lateral and forward and backward leg swings, doing the big arm circles, doing torso twists, things like that. That's considered a dynamic stretch. Why is that better than static stretching? Well, there has been some research that shows that static stretching actually can reduce overall strength and power in athletic activity. So while it might feel really good to get out there and stretch those hamstrings out, is that going to potentially affect your performance? Now, listen, we're talking about optimizing at this point. For a recreational jiu-jitsu person, is this really going to affect your performance that night? At class, probably not. But if you are training for a tournament, training for a fight, something like that, you want to optimize all the categories you can control. So something as simple as switching from static stretching to dynamic stretching, if that is even a 1% difference, maybe that 1% is the difference that lets you blast that double or power out of a move or whatever it is that you need, it's going to give you that little bit of an edge. So again, we're talking about optimizing. Another way that you can actually warm up is if you do a gentle flow roll with someone before class. This only works if it actually is a gentle flow roll and not one of those rolls where we say, hey, let's just flow roll, and 30 seconds later it turns into a war crime. That can be kind of tough to do. So unless you and your partner both have the discipline to maintain a nice, easy roll, maybe don't do the roll, but if you're able to, it can be a great way of warming up, providing a lot of dynamic movement in a lot of different directions. If you want to take it one step further, if you know what is being drilled, what is being taught that night, drill the basic movements associated with that. So if you know that we're doing side control escapes, do some shrimps. That's going to be a great way because you'll be priming the exact muscles you need. Do some bridging work. That's going to help. Do that bridge where you step over, where it's a step over bridge and you end up on your knees. All the things you could possibly do for a side control escape, really basic movements. That's going to prime your system. You'll get nice and warmed up. It also increases your muscle memory. It helps build that retention that will come in handy later when you're actually doing the movements. Now, how long should your warm-up last? Shorter than this video, to be sure. It doesn't need to be as long as this. How long? As long as it needs to be. Now, if you're relatively injury-free, 5 minutes is probably about all you need. More than that, and now you're just really you're not going to get much more out of it after 5 minutes if you're doing a solid 5-minute nice gentle warm-up. But maybe you're not injury-free. Maybe you're recovering from an injury. I'm still recovering from the bicep surgery, so I need to spend a little bit more time warming up. I'm also older, so I tend to spend a little bit more time warming up until I feel like, all right, my joints are moving. I'm not as creaky. My knees aren't barking at me. I'm feeling limber. Take the time that you need, but it's important not to ever skip it. 1, you'll be better at learning and you'll be better at rolling physically and mentally if you do the warm-up. The other important reason to never skip your warm-up is if you do, you are at a pretty considerable higher risk of injury. Remember before, we're saying that some of those numbers say it could be upwards of 36%. So you could spend 5-10 minutes warming up now, or just say, nah, I'm going to skip it. I'm going to have some big feelings about this. I'm just going to roll. And then you're going to spend weeks, if not months, recovering from an injury. Like I said, ligament and tendon injuries can be 3 to 6 months of recovery time. And even then, you might never be back to 100%. So take the time to warm up. Now, if you think warming up is optional, that's cool. Perfectly fine. But don't complain when your hip pops. Don't complain when your cardio crashes, your triangles feel like trash. Because they will. Take the time. Anyway, if you like videos like this, if this has been good for you, please make sure to like, subscribe, follow us on Instagram. I'm Brian Wiggins. This is No BS BJJ. Thanks for taking the time.